Are we at a point to where the federal government and the left just now do whatever they want because they know, quite frankly, that they will never be punished for it? Well, it looks like this right here is going to be the third video that we're going to be releasing on this topic of left-wingers and right-wingers and what's going on in America through the medium of, obviously, the guy who wears the beanie. So make sure you guys stick around for the full video.
They already went too far. It's done. Now they only have the exercise of raw power. They're desperate for Trump supporters to act out and do something. And as long as we just keep listening to good songs like Rich Men North of Richmond and stop buying Bud Light and shopping at Target, eventually they lose their power. They lose their confidence. They're becoming desperate. Already we're seeing corporations drop ESG in name because they know.
Really quick, this video was meant to come out on Monday, but due to YouTube laying a copyright claim in on a video on my second channel, Gear Issue 33, which, by the way, I will link in the comment section for you guys and pin it there for you guys to view. By the way, I actually won the claim. Of course, they put a claim in. I actually went out of my way to dispute this time around, and I actually won. Funny how things work if you actually fight back. Well, that's actually the theme of this video here. Now, guys, before we get started, I want you to know right now that there are people out there in this nation that will hold you to extremely ridiculous standards that, quite frankly, they do not have themselves. And I'm pretty sure you guys already know what I'm talking about. These are the same people who will cancel you over a tweet or something that was said 20 years ago or something in your background that, quite frankly, was a human error. But, of course, let's just go ahead and be honest that cancel culture and the left does not exactly leave any type of room for redemption, which is something that is quite so often in America, or at least it was until about 5 or 6 years ago. So that right there is going to be the topic of today. Now, guys, I've already done 2 videos that actually pertain to this topic. One was released on Thursday, talking about the CW phrase that, quite frankly, this man loves to use so much. And, of course, the other one was a video that I released yesterday talking about whether the left was in an echo chamber or not and whether the right was actually winning the culture war. That right there, of course, leads us to the conversation of 2024 and that topic of... Yes. Are you going to be so crazy, so hypocritical that you might vote for a guy that might get arrested or a guy who might be in jail or might be in prison at the time of the election? Just know that these people are very, very weird in the way they do things. Weird is not exactly a good phrase for these people, even though obviously they are, quite frankly, very weird. I'm talking about the establishment, uniparty, neo-libs. I'm not talking about the classical liberals. So there is this, obviously, this authoritarian left that's out there that's, quite frankly, making life a living hell for everyone. But then again, though, at the same time, though, this is how these people operate. They will punch you in the face, and then when you fight back, they will then scream victim. They will then lock somebody up who, quite frankly, should not be going to jail or not, obviously cannot go to jail, as I explained a little bit further in this video, and then turn right back around and say that you're a hypocrite because you're supposed to be a lover of the rule of law. So why the hell are you voting for somebody that is a criminal? But for that right there,
this is my take on this. But they basically create an environment to say, Republicans, you guys, do you really want to elect a guy that's going to be in jail? And so they've... The elections are such that Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin are all within 1, 2, 3, 4%. You don't need to get 500,000 people against the president. You need 10, 20, 40. Michigan was won in 2015 by Trump by 10,703 votes. That's it. They get that they just need a little movement of the needle. And they win. They win Michigan. They win. So what I think they're really doing is ensuring that they get a conviction in Washington, D.C. and or in Fulton County, Georgia, and that they can spread the message that you guys are going to elect a guy who can't get himself out of jail. And that, to me, is actually a worse scenario because they will let Republicans infight on that, whether or not, and they don't have to remove him from the ballot.
I don't see that being as successful. That is a Pyrrhic victory.
But this is an attempt to create the hypocrisy argument. Check it out. Most conservatives by nature tend to love the rule of law. As a matter of fact, it was mostly conservatives that were out there saying back the blue during the 2020 George Floyd protests, riots, whatever you want to call them. I just straight up call them the riots. Or Antifa riots, because obviously Antifa was a big part of that. The idea is to try to create this little sense in a voter's mind, especially if they're on the right. It's basically trying to guilt trip them into not voting. That's basically what it is. We convicted this guy of this. We convicted this guy of that there. Oh, wait, we're going to pull him off the ballot in some places, which, by the way, I've already explained in that a video on the fourth indictment. There, Bob Barnes explained how that was actually an impossibility, and Alan Dershowitz seconded it. Alan Dershowitz, probably the best appellate attorney that we have in the country right now, even in his old age, how they explained that right there would more than likely not occur. Also, something else to go on top of this, the thing about the hypocrisy argument is this right here. It's basically these people trying to hold you to these extremely ridiculous standards. Now, in the course of this video, I'm going to explain to you why it is that many people, especially people on the right and moderates, are starting to see through this and quite frankly I would care. Play a clip from the Jason Whitlock show where he had Royce White on, where Royce White basically said the exact same thing. The idea is basically to create a situation where the person who loves the rule of law will say, you know what, they just convicted this guy, which, by the way, they will get the convictions on him, but he'll more than likely not pull any prison time, as I mentioned earlier, because you can't actually lock up a president of the United States for crimes or whatever they may have done or whatever you're charging them with that they did in the Oval Office without impeachment with conviction. Basically, if you impeach somebody without an actual conviction, it's pretty much a nil. You could just say, look, I impeached him twice. Yeah, but you never convicted him. You never got all of the United States Senate to vote in favor of the actual conviction and removal from office. So therefore, it obviously looks pointless. But why continue to pursue the guy if this is the case? Well, the idea is to try to create a scenario in 2024 where they say, these people right here are seriously, these people are crazy. They're not even living by their own standards. It's a way for the left to try to get one over on the right. I mean, have you guys ever heard the expression that, what is it? Lefties can't meme. You know, we love to meme the left because, quite frankly, their memes are horrible. Things that they do, quite frankly, doesn't make any sense. I mean, these people have created some 3,000 or so odd forms of, well, I can't really say it here on the platform without getting the yellow dollar sign. Basically, what they're trying to do is they're trying to create a scenario where they think they can call you on a hypocrisy. You see, you voted for a criminal. You're supposed to be all about the law. That's who these people are. They're finger pointers. They wag their finger at you. They force you to live the standards that, quite frankly, are extremely what ridiculous. They're doing is they're holding you to standards that, quite frankly, you yourself are probably not going to be able to live up to, or at the same time, they try to create a situation that's based on a bunch of lies and a bunch of BS, and that's basically what they're trying to do. It's called trying to guilt you. As a matter of fact, it's actually a tool of Satan, trying to make you feel guilty for something that, quite frankly, you may have done where you may have been in the right, where there might be a little bit of gray on it. It's a little trick that they do. It almost makes you wonder who the hell is really and truly running that crowd over there. But still, at the same time, though, it gets a little bit deeper. You see, the reason why I brought up the Royce White, I can't remember if I said Royce White or Royce, but Royce White, this guy here, is because he talked about in his clip on the Jason Whitlock show, he talked about how it was that people needed to just go ahead and kind of break through the facade. The crap that they're trying to put on this man is obviously a bunch of BS. You need to stand up and actually fight back. Well, I have a belief that it's very possible that people will in fact begin to fight back. As a matter of fact, they already have. You see, what I talked about earlier was not just the uniparty. I was bringing up the fact that the corporate world has also been doing this as well. Take a look at what happened with Bud Light. They put Dylan Mulvaney out there and expected to get away with it. What they did not anticipate a bunch of people coming out and saying, look, we're not going to drink this product anymore, when all Anheuser-Busch really until he had to do was just come out a week later and apologize. Then again, though, they've also got this photo of Kid Rock drinking Bud Light after he claimed he would be boycotting them. I think the man's gone 4 months, but then again, at the same time, if you guys want to rage in the comment section, go right ahead and do so. I know that I still am not drinking Bud Light, but then again, at the same time, the only shirt that I could wear for this video that I actually had outside without actually digging in anything was obviously something you probably can tell is a Nike Dry Fit shirt. But still, at the same time, though, the thing is this right here. Boycotts obviously work. If you utilize a boycott, companies will begin to lose money, and they more than likely will either A, not do it again, or B, people will be fired. The question is, however, are the right people going to get fired? Pay very close attention.
Where's the accountability? I mean, yes, they fired the marketing team. That's cowardice.
They fired the people who did the thing.
Why don't you think their board demands
That's
action
my
then?
point. But this is where I get, I mean,
But
this is my worry.
That doesn't matter.
It does. Because this is the point that you're...
I don't care what Bud Light does. Bud Light could rehire the marketing VPs, and they could go and juggle bottles in the middle of Times Square for all I care. The fact is, what we've learned from this is that the American people are turning things around.
Right.
That's all that matters.
But what I'm worried about,
does.
what I'm trying to say is that you're right. I agree with you on principle. The problem I have is that Target, you look at that, the CEOs and the top folks there, somebody should have paid the consequence for this, right?
Who cares?
And because what I'm trying to do is make an analogy to the Democratic Party here and say these guys keep going over and over and over again, right? No one's demanding that Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi or Hakeem Jeffries or whatever go, hey guys, you're guiding us down a path of losing. No one
It is
legitimately
good that they stay on. It is good that they're not doing that. If you've got a guy who's driving if the Democrats are driving their bus off a cliff, then we should be saying like, well, it's unfortunate that's their leadership.
Also brings up the fact that right now libs have got so much power, but it seems that they're definitely abusing that power. We'll talk about that more soon, because if you don't have the population on your side, or if you don't have people that are actually buying into your BS, then you can't control them the way you think you can. We'll talk about that more towards the end of the video. This right here can go in multiple ways. I want to focus in on what Sean said. A lot of people, the ones who lost their jobs, they were putting videos up, TikToks, and they were showing people exactly how bad Bud Light had gone. They were calling Anheuser-Busch out. And I said before in several videos that obviously Anheuser-Busch was going to pay for this by losing a lot of money. The same thing, for example, would happen with Disney. You see, when Disney starts putting out all the woke nonsense movies, people tend to not go because they kind of have an idea of what to expect. I've done, 3-4 videos on woke Snow White and how it is that Rachel Zegler has actually gone out of her way to insult anybody who may want to watch this film, insulted the old source material. I talked about Indiana Jones 5 and how bad it was. I talked about The Little Mermaid and what exactly happened with that one. Fact of the matter is that Disney's already falling apart and people are not going to the theme parks because they kind of know what to expect. You can expect the exact same thing out of Anheuser-Busch. The problem is that will they be firing the little man, or will they be getting rid of their CEOs, or will they be getting rid of people who heads in marketing? Now, the slippery slope is that they could replace that person with somebody who's even more woke. But then again, at the same time, if a company begins to lose more and more money, after a while, they will eventually start having focus groups and they will ask you point blank, where did we go wrong with you? Where did we do you wrong? It's about changing behavior. The problem is that the current left-wing environment seems to warrant that, quite frankly, they don't. Actually, they've got their head so far up their ass that they have fallen in love with the smell of their own farts. Look, I'm going to play this very, very next clip for you guys. I'm going to come back on the other side and I'm going to explain it a little bit more because obviously, take the case of Sound of Freedom, for example. The thing about Sound of Freedom was that it was a film that was made on a $14 million budget. What's the first thing that the media did? They called it a QAnon piece, when in fact the film was made in 2017, finished in 2018, and that was a couple of years before the whole QAnon
Sound of
thing
Freedom
happened.
surpasses Indiana Jones. Disney now facing major boycotts. Richmond, north of Richmond, to debut at #1.
Yeah.
Because people are starting to push
here's
back culturally, and they're losing. So the only thing they have left is raw power. It won't work.
So let's
ask Republicans over the past 10 years if political power did anything for them with no cultural power.
So on the Sound of Freedom and on Target, just to keep it one-on-one here, you're absolutely right. Sound of Freedom, probably closing on to 200 million right now. And it's people went out, saw the movie, spread the word, we won. Target, same thing. People were disgusted by what they saw, said, I'm not shopping in there. But here's the question. Let's look at Target. Who lost their job?
My guess
one
is
is
a bunch
working.
of cashiers. If
But
anybody.
that's my point, is that this is what scares me, is that in any normal world a decade ago, you would have fired that CEO and said, what a moron, you're out.
Yeah, who got fired at Bud Light?
Yeah.
The marketing team.
Yeah,
The marketing
No.
VPs.
Just to be clear, they didn't get fired. They're on leave.
No, they were fired.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
the leave was a lie, reportedly.
fine. But
To
here's
say
my point.
what's happening now culturally is victory. They're saying that Disney's didn't Disney lose nearly $2 billion or something like that off their past several releases? They're failing. The Flash, one of the biggest box office bombs in history. These institutions are in free fall at the same time. Angel Studios with Sound of Freedom. Not just that, The Chosen is huge.
Yeah.
Success across the board. You add on to the fact of what something I've been saying for quite a bit. The left is more likely to abort their children and sterilize their children. No matter what you think about indoctrination of kids, the math is absolute. There is a rate of attrition among leftists that does not exist among the right, which means 20 years from now, it's going to be 2-to-1 conservative to liberal voters, even with indoctrination. And not to mention, conservatives are pushing back on the indoctrination. So what I see with Democrats, the indictment of Donald Trump, They're behind the scenes crying, looking at their assets in Hollywood failing. Their PR campaigns don't work. Their woke garbage movies are being mocked and ridiculed. The celebrities, many of them are turning and being like, I don't want to be involved in this. Dana Carvey puts out a video mocking vaccines.
People right now aren't exactly allowing themselves to be controlled. People are starting to wake up and people are starting to see through the facade. Now, granted, that film has made a lot of money. It's making a lot of money at this moment in time, and Angel Studios has another one. Now, one of the things that Tim was bringing up was that these people may be driving themselves off a cliff. And my response is simply this.
They are dying. Let them die.
That's right. Let them. Let them end themselves. Let them end themselves, okay? It would be the quickest civil war. It would be the most, I put it this way here. It would be the least violent civil war in history. Let them end themselves, okay? Some of these people, of course, can probably be brought back to the light. But then again, though, there are some people out there that, quite frankly, will not be brought back to light. Fact of the matter is that they are driving themselves off a cliff. And the thing that you must understand, I brought this up in the previous video, is that right now, they're at a point in time where they abort their own children. Conservatives have 2 kids per liberal household having 1. I mean, even with all the indoctrination, little Johnny, little Tommy, little Susie, they go back home, they show their parents what the hell they've been getting taught in school, the indoctrination and whatnot, and what do you think happens? Parents eventually go to the school. They say something to the teachers, they say something to the school boards, they say something to the principals. People are actually standing up and people are actually fighting back. Truth be told is, everything starts on the state and local level. That right there is where you need to actually go to actually do any type of change. But the fact that they've gotten a hold of pop culture in the institution, by the way, I think the pop culture battlefield is probably the most important one because it actually helps shape views and public opinions on things. The fact of the matter on that front is that we're also winning there as well. Look at the amount of money that Disney has lost in the past 2 years on their woke products. Just look at everything they've lost. Elemental, Buzz Lightyear. Just take a look at the amount of money that they've lost. Take a look at the amount of money that Target has lost. Take a look at the amount of money that Anheuser-Busch has lost over Dylan Mulvaney. And about conservatives being drawn out to do something, I did do a video covering that. I'll try to link it in the description box as well. But I think conservatives have actually learned their lesson, especially with, and also to go on top of that, I think that there's already been so much bad press that, quite frankly, there's so much... how do I say, such very, very bad reporting, slams, the smears, all that stuff there. I think there's already been so much of that quite frankly, I think that conservatives kind of expect to be hit. But then again, at the same time, though, it's also possible that we may be getting to a point in time where, quite frankly, conservatives don't care anymore. But I don't think that's the case. The vast majority of conservatives don't have time to go to protest. They don't have time to complain because we're doing all the working man's jobs. And for the most part, conservatives, we just take a shot of liquor and just continue to move on. We don't have time to complain, whine, bitch, and bellyache over what is really something that's, quite frankly, nothing to be offended about. Unlike the infected who find a way to, quite frankly, go out there and just oppose and protest anything, it just makes you wonder. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. It just makes you wonder. It's also something else, too, to consider that most of these people are not going to have jobs in the future, speaking of the lefties, because the more they post on social media and crap, the stupid stuff they do, all the stupid antics, after a while, people are just going to look at their social media and say, no, we're not going to hire these people. If I haven't said it before, I'll say it again. It's actually very, very much a feudal ideology when you sit down and think about it. You will see that obviously people are not falling for the BS. As I mentioned earlier, these right here are people who hold you to extremely ridiculous standards and expect you to live them while at the same time not having any standards themselves. I mentioned in the previous video, Kyle Kulinski out there giving policy ideas, yet this guy had never seen a farm before in his life and never even flew over a farm, okay, let alone actually been to one. Think about this crap. These people have absolutely no standards, and yet they're trying to force you to live to a standard that, quite frankly, is extremely ridiculous. They don't allow for any type of redemption or anything. These people practically got their heads up their own asses, like I said before, loving the smell of their own farts. It's the DC Beltway types, the suburban Beltway types that, quite frankly, hate your guts. Stop giving these people your money. Stop buying products from their actual very, very large stores and whatnot. Stop giving them your money. It's kind of like what Razor Fist has said. If they actually hate you, go ahead and hate them back, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who've got the most amount of stuff. As I mentioned before, people are beginning to see right through the BS, and they're not falling for it. They're not being guilt tripped anymore. So you have to ask yourself a question. With them having absolute power right now, or I don't even think it's really absolute power, exactly how much further can they go? Well, they do this crap in broad daylight with no fear of being held accountable. At some point in time, you got to think somebody's going to hold them accountable. However, the thing you have to understand is that they are only accountable to one thing and one thing only, the almighty dollar. If they lose the almighty dollar, then quite frankly, they don't have anything. And when it comes to the political process, let me just go ahead and put it this way here. When you're having 2 kids per household to your opposition having 1 kid per household, and you're seeing that they're aborting off their future, after a while, you will begin to see that people will start to figure it out, and they'll start to realize that obviously we can get these people out above any forms of shenanigans, fortifications, or rigging. I got to say it a certain way because of the way YouTube standards are. And one more thing too, and I'm going to end the video on this note here. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but the Biden administration is bringing back C9-1 restrictions, masks, stuff like that for airplanes in October, because apparently there's some variant in Canada. It's the month of August, and you're waiting until October? Now, granted, obviously I don't want these restrictions to come back. I never wore a mask to begin with, but at the same time, though, why are you setting it up for October? Just figure I'd go ahead and throw that out there. Fact of the matter is, people can see through the facade, people can see through the BS, and people are not going to be guilt-tripped anymore. And that's why there's another reason why it is that I feel that the right is beginning to win the culture war, and probably will continue to win the culture war. And I think if you put any restrictions on anybody come October, I believe, especially if it goes beyond airports, I don't think people are going to enforce it, because the social alienation in this country may actually not be as bad as we thought, seeing how it is that one side is beginning to win the culture war. With that right there being said, guys, make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe, share the video, sound off in the comment section, and I'll see you guys later.